Okay. So yesterday we spoke about, and I've only found this year because I was always intrigued by the names of these places. So take a look at Perek Lamed Gimel Pasuk Chaf Hey. I'll show you this. There's some really, really intriguing stuff. It just shows you, and the reason these are all just a remez. It's all a remez, which is a level of. It's not the plain meaning of the pasuk, but you see that everything is alluded to and contained in Torah. Then you wonder, how did the Gedolim find everything in the Torah? Because everything's in the Torah. It's all there. So if you look on page 920, it says Vayisu Mecharoda Vayachanu b'Makelo, 6 lines from the top. And we said yesterday, Charoda means fear, terror. Vayachanu b'Makhelos, and they camp in a place called Makhelos. And Makhelos is the idea that it comes from kahal. What does kahal mean? To join together. So I saw one of the commentaries. Again, you're going to find many commentaries on these, on this. But one of the commentaries says that. Sometimes you have a person who's got an ability. Let's say he could take on a position of leadership. He could be the rabbi of a community, which, by the way, is one of the most unenviable positions, to be a rabbi of a community, a pulpit rabbi. And you got to be a rabbi of a community, a rabbi of a shul, and you got to deal with people. To be a rabbi in a yeshiva is a joke. A rabbi in yeshiva, especially a place like this, is the easiest job in the world. People want to learn Torah. People coming to learn Torah. People are you get to yourself learn Torah and teach Torah all day long. When you're a rabbi of a community, you got to deal with people, and you're dealing with students. You're not dealing with people who are what we call balabatim. Balabatim literally means homeowners. They're people who are established. So everybody's got an opinion, and you got to raise money. And you got to deal with all the guff that people give you. And a rabbi could never please everybody. It's a very, very demanding position. You live in a fishbowl, and everybody's looking at the rabbi. And so sometimes you have a person who may have that ability, or you may have a different ability to take on a responsibility in the community. Maybe you're the guy who needs to lead the community to raise money to build a day school. And you've got the ability to motivate people or whatever it is. So sometimes the person is in a state of charoda, you got to overcome that fear. Vayisu mecharoda vayachanu b'Makhelos. You got to take over the kahal. You got to take over the community. If you got the ability, you got to take that responsibility. Sometimes, people, when you're all going to be at some point, if you aren't already, you're going to be members of a community. So sometimes people say, why don't they build another shul? Who's they? My friend David over here has done a tremendous amount for the Philadelphia community, and has taken on. And just ask him if you want to find out how much fun it is, and if anybody's got anything to say. Yeah, everybody's saying. And by the way, you're on the right track where people tell you it's never going to work. Then you're on. Then it's going to happen. There's always naysayers. There are always people. And Rabbi Weinbach, that's all. He used to say, "Don't give me an idea. Give me a man." Don't give me a suggestion. Give me a man. Just somebody do it. You come on. We ought to have over here. You have to do it. So do it. You weren't the person who start. Most people in the communities who start things, they weren't born with any more ability than anybody else. There's a need, and nobody is doing it. So a guy steps into the gap and he takes over. Then you got to convince people, and you got to hear people's opinions. It's usually the people who do the least to give you the most opinion. Also, true or not true?
Yes.
They got something to say. If I wanted your opinion, I'm not interested in your opinion. I'm interested in your money or your help. I'm not interested in your opinion. So they give you neither, and they give you their opinion. Right? And then they come along, the chutzpah, to go and try to discourage you. What do you think? You don't want to do it, so don't do it. What do you got to discourage other people from doing it? It's never going to work. People said to the Panovich Rav that it wasn't going to work. So now you got the Panovich Yeshiva. They said to the Panovich Rav, you're dreaming. When the Panovich Rav came here after the war, and he goes and builds a yeshiva on a hill in Bnei Brak, and he tells them he wants the entrance. Have you ever been to Panovich? Yeah. The entrance doesn't have a door. The entrance you can enter about, he says he wants an entrance where 500 students are going to be able to go in and out without any problem. They said to him, "You're dreaming." He said, "I may be dreaming, at least I'm not sleeping." That's what he said. And he built it, and he did it. There's always somebody say, "No, it's not going to work." One of the most incredible stories in history is Rav Dessler. Rav Dessler was in England. Rav Aaron Kotler was in America. There were three people. Rav Dessler was in England, Rav Aaron Kotler was in America, and the Panovich Rav was in Israel. And Rav Aaron Kotler came from Europe to America, and he said he wants to bring the idea of studying Torah. It used to be in America in the 40s, 30s, 40s, even into the 50s, if you studied, you were studying to be a rabbi, to get smicha and to be a rabbi. The idea of studying like we have today, kollels, where people just study Torah because it's a mitzvah to study Torah, that was unheard of in America. Rabbi Aaron Kotler came to America, and there are countless people who said, "Rabbi, this will happen when hair grows on my palm." Right, that's what it's going to. And there were naysayers of this, but today Lakewood in America and all the kollels that have the satellite kollels that have come sprungboard out of Lakewood, that was all because of Rav Aaron Kotler, where everybody said it's not going to work out. And today in America, a guy gets married, it's almost a given he's going to learn in kollel now. Where in the 40s, when Rav Aaron Kotler came to America, there was no such thing as a kollel, no such thing as a guy learning post-marriage. Rav Dessler was in New York. Rav Dessler was in England. His wife, Rav Dessler was living in Lithuania, and he came to England to be a rabbi. He took a job. His wife and daughter were in. He left them back in Kelm, I think he was. He came to England, took a position as a rabbi in England because he had to pay off his father's debts. So he took a position as a rabbi in England. In the meantime, the war broke out, and his wife and daughter, his son, escaped Europe and got to Cleveland. And his wife and daughter were sent with the British nationals to Australia. He didn't see his family for 6 years of the war. He was separated from his family for 6 years, from 1940 to 1946. And in those days, you didn't have mail, and you didn't have faxes, you didn't have anything else. And in the meantime, in Gateshead, which is a small little Jewish community, right across the River Tyne from, am I pronouncing it right? Thames, the River Thames. That's how you pronounce it? How's it spelled?
T-H-A-M-S-E-N-E.
It's with Y, no?
T-H-A-M-E-S.
The Thames River? The Thames. So the major community there is Newcastle, with all the very fine people, all the very fine occupants in coal miners in northern England. And right across the bridge, there's a small community called Gateshead. In 1940, what happened was there was a group of people that left Newcastle because they wanted to be frummer in Newcastle, many people. So they went across the bridge to Gateshead and started a small Shomer Shabbos community. And the shochet was a man named Dovid Dryan, Rav Dovid Dryan. Now listen to this unbelievable lesson. Rav Dovid Dryan was the shochet for the community. And he came up with the idea in 1940 that he wants to start a kollel. So he sent out letters to 22 rabbanim in England that they should take on the project of building a kollel. He wasn't a rav. He sent out to 22 rabbanim. 18 of them didn't bother responding. 3 of them said to him, "It might be a good idea, but in case you haven't heard, there's a war going on. This is not the time to start a kollel." And Rav Dessler said, "Great idea." And Rav Dessler then, at tremendous personal sacrifice, he would go from London to Gateshead to a place called Letchworth. He did a triangle on the trains. He was on the train so often he would go on the overnight train on Thursday nights. He would take the overnight train from Gateshead to London. He would sleep on the train, and he was on the train so much he designed some sort of mechanism for the British railway system at the train stops. He designed some sort of mechanism, and he went and he built this kollel. And as a result of the kollel, the entire Gateshead community flourished. And Rav Dessler himself writes, and it could be a self-description, but he writes, "You sometimes find a person who has no more talent or ability than anybody else around him. He's got no given gifts more than anybody else around him, and he sees a need for the community, and therefore he takes on the responsibility to try to do it. And because he takes on the responsibility, he's granted siyata d'shmaya. He has certain divine assistance because he took on the responsibility. And then afterwards, all that comes from that, everything that springboards and that eventually the ripple effect, that's all credited to that person. Whatever happens down the line is credited to that person. So if a person understands, we need a shul in the community, we need a mikveh, we need a day school, we need a lot of needs in the community. Why don't they build it? You're the they, gentlemen. You're the they, right? And you're going to have doors slammed in your face, and you're going to have a lot of people giving you opinions, and you're going to have a lot of people giving you grief, but in the end, you're going to succeed. You have to make the effort. And if you don't succeed, that's okay too, because it's not your job to succeed. Your job is to make the effort. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides if you succeed or not. So the Panovich Rav, they tell a story about the Panovich Rav. He went to get a donation from somebody, and the guy said, I'll give you money, but only if the students in the institution don't wear yarmulkes. A wise guy. He said, I'll give you money, but only if the people in the institution don't give you yarmulkes. So the Panovich Rav said, okay. And he took the money and started the first girls' school. I like that. Then there was another joker. Who he gave him a check. Apparently, the guy was having fun at the Panovich Rav. He gave him a $50,000. I think it's about the Panovich Rav. He gave him a $50,000 check. And the Panovich Rav goes to the bank to cash it. The guy only had $49,000 in his account. The guy was trying to give him a hard time. So he took $1,000, deposited in the guy's account, and then he cashed the check. Now, I think it was the Panovich Rav. It might not have been, because it's not so clear according to halacha you could do that, if you know the guy didn't mean to give it to you. Whatever the case is, so a person has the ability, you're afraid. You may be afraid of the public, you may be afraid, you don't want, you're intimidated. If you've got the ability, now look at the next pasuk. Vayisu mimakelos. And if you run away from the community because you don't want to do it, vayachanu b'sochas. What does sochas mean? Down, below. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu could create a situation where this guy will then lose his parnasa. He'll be under the line, under the red line, and then he'll have no choice but to take it on. But if a person has, the Torah is teaching you over here that if you got the ability, you should do it. Now, take a look at Pasuk Lamed Gimel, because I had my own idea here, and then I saw one of the commentaries actually goes in this direction. It says in Pasuk Lamed Beis first, Vayisu mi b'nei Yakon, vayachanu b'chor hagidgod. Okay? Then it says, Vayisu mechor hagidgod, vayachanu biyatvasa. In Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Now listen to this. The first thing is, the word God. What does the word God mean? It does. There is a word of God, right? But when Leah names God, Leah has a son named God. It says Ba God. Rashi, back in Parshas Vayetze, he says, what does God mean? Mazal Tov. Good mazel. Good mazel. By the way, if somebody has something happen, you don't walk up to the guy and say God. You say Mazel Tov, right? But Rashi is just telling you what the word means. The word God means good mazel. So when I looked at the pasuk, it looked to me like this: Vayisu mechor hagid God. A chor is what, gentlemen? It's a hole. A chor is a hole. So the pasuk reads: a person goes from the hole in his mazel, hagid God. You see the word God twice. Vayachanu bi yatvasa. What does yatvasa sound like? What's the root of the word yatvasa? Tov. Good. Right? Yatvasa has got the word tov in there. So sometimes a person feels that your mazel no good. There's a chor hagid God. Sometimes in life you feel like, boy, it's just not, things are just not going my way. Do you ever hear people say, boy, today is just not my day? Do you ever hear people say that? Today is not my day. Well, first of all, it's unreasonable to think it would be, because there are only 365 days in a year, and there are 8 billion people on the planet, so there's no reason to think that you should have one of the days, right? So the person says, today is not my day. Well, no day is your day, because there are a lot of people involved in this day. But when a person means is, things are just not going right. Things are just not going right. And sometimes it's even worse, because things may not going right health-wise, or they may not going right family-wise, or may not going right financially-wise. Don't despair. Don't give up hope. Vayisu mechor hagidgad. A person may have a hole in his mazel. You feel like it's not going well? Vayachanu biyatvasa. Things could change overnight. Things could change. We had a student from Ohr Somayach who won $5 million in the California State Lottery. He had to borrow bus fare to get to the lottery to get that's how bad off he was. So a person could change. Things could change overnight. There's a woman who won the biggest lottery and the biggest Powerball was $1.5 billion. A woman won, a 53-year-old woman a couple of years ago, she won the Powerball, 1.5. So people you always take a lump payout. She ended up getting about 800. After taxes and everything else, she ends up with $800 million. I've often thought about that. I've often thought about $800 million. Where would I even begin? Well, first thing is I get one of those. I've always wanted one of those 8-slice toasters. So that's the first thing I would do is get one of those 8-slice toasters. Yeah, where would you even begin with 800? But it could change overnight for people. It could change overnight. That's the first thing. Person has to daven, and the Gemara says, "Ein mazel liYisrael." We don't have mazel. Now, what does that mean? Ein mazel liYisrael. Everybody is born with a certain mazel. We are born with a certain mazel. Some people are born with good mazel, not good mazel. Ein mazel liYisrael, the Gemara in Shabbos says, means that whereas goyim cannot change their mazel. For a Jew, anything could change. Tefillah could change the mazel. Good deeds could change the mazel. Studying Torah could change your mazel could change. It could be, by the way, that's right, do you ever hear the expression, somebody's a shlemazel? There's a shlemiel and a shlemazel. You know what a shlemiel? The shlemiel is the guy who trips and spills the soup. The shlemiel is the klutz. The shlemazel is the guy the soup spills on. Right? Why did it spill on him and not on him? Because he's a shlemazel. Shalom mazel. He doesn't have mazel. He's always in the wrong place at the wrong time.
The nudnik asks, what's the soup?
What's that?
The nudnik asks, what type of soup is it?
That's right. There you go. That's right. The shlil shmazel and the nudnik. That's right. The shlil shmazel. Yeah. What kind of soup was that? Yeah. So you have a shlemiel and you have a shlemazel. A shlemazel means you got no mazel. Comes along the Torah. It says it could change. It could change overnight. People's mazel could change overnight. Number one. Number two. One of the Mefarshim says like this. If you look at the Gemara in Shabbos talks about what every letter. Now, pay attention carefully. What does a letter mean? Aleph means to learn. Aleph beis, Aleph bina, learn wisdom. Gimel dalid, Gmol dalim. Gimel dalim means do good to the poor people. Gimel dalid, Gmol dalim. And then the Gemara says, and if you do, Hey Vav Zayin Ches Tes Yud stands for all the good things that'll happen to the person if he is kind to poor people. Either he gives tzedakah or he's involved in chesed. So look what it says now. Vayisu mechor hagid God. You got a double terminology, Gimel Dalid, Gimel Dalid. You have a person who not only is involved in helping the poor or helping the downtrodden, but he's persistent at it. He's constantly doing it, as symbolized by the double terminology. God, Gimel Dalid, Gimel Dalid. This is a guy who is constantly helping others. And what does this happens to this person periodically? He's got Mechor Hagid God. He finds out that he's hurting. You have to sacrifice your money. Sometimes you have to sacrifice your time. One of the biggest difficulties in life, the biggest chesed to do, is to listen to somebody who, there's Jake's nudnik, right? You get a nudnik who comes to talk to you, and you're like, yeah, but that's also a chesed. That's also a chesed. They once asked the, don't you have nudniks in your life? Don't you have nudniks in your life? I got bad news for you. Maybe you're someone else's nudnik. Yeah, people say, do I have nudniks in my life? Yeah, I got nudniks. Yeah, maybe you're someone else's nudnik. Right? So they asked the Stipler. The Stipler is Chaim Kanievsky's father. As he was getting older, so they asked him, he had all sorts of people coming in. And then you had the regular people, or what we would call the normal people. Then you got people who are off balance. You got one guy thinks he's Mashiach, and another guy just thinks he's got plans on how to save all of Klal Yisrael that the Stipler obviously hasn't thought of, and so on and so forth. You got tremendous amount of people. And they asked the Stipler was getting older, he was not in good health. They said to him, why do you allow these nudniks? Why do you give them so much time? The Stipler says, who knows if I'm not alive in the merit of the nudniks? Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, you know how many Mashiachs Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky met? You know how many Eliyahu Navis he met? How many Mashiachs he had? You know, it's not easy. It was all day long. People say, oh, Reb Chaim, say, wow, all that honor. Yeah, you know what kind of punishing schedule he had with people? One after the other. I was there once with a group of people from my community. We went to group of people because we had a tzedakah fund. So we wanted to get a letter from Reb Chaim Kanievsky for the community. So we were there, and we came in, and as soon as we turned to leave, his grandson brought somebody else, and I remember Chaim goes, Zelani Gemar. And then the line doesn't finish. The line doesn't. All he wants to do is learn or breathe. And he said that it doesn't finish. The line doesn't finish. And it was every day. It was every day and every night. It was like that all the time. It wasn't a one-off because I was there. It was every day. So Vayisu mechor hagidgad vayachnu biadvasa. Sometimes a person, you may feel that you got a hole, that you're just drained from the chesed that you're doing. Vayachnu biadvasa, but things are good. There will be a payment for people who do chesed. They always get the good things in life. HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays for chesed in this world. You do chesed, you are not going to lose out. You're not going to lose out by doing chesed. That's why the mitzvah of honoring parents, it says, L'man yarichon yamecha. The reward is you live long. Why does the Torah give that reward? Why is the Torah, is that the reward that's said for honoring parents? L'man yarichon yamecha. What's the connection to honoring parents? Why should honoring parents cause a person to live long?
Because they give you life.
They give you life.
In a way, you're emulating and honoring Hashem, no?
You're emulating and honoring Hashem, but why is there okay, so tell me you're going to get rich. Tell me you're going to, what do you call it? Tell me you'll find a shidduch quickly. Why is the reward that you're going to live long?
Because they want to give you more life. As they gave you life, they want to give you more life.
Okay, it could be that they gave you life, therefore you're giving life to the, okay, it could be. What do you...
By honoring them, you're relieving their stress and you're making them happier, and by being happier, helps you live longer life. So if you make somebody happier, you're helping your parents live longer.
Not bad. Not bad. No, these are all valid answers.
Which one is the answer?
The most valid answer, though, the most valid. No, they're all good answers. The answer is that the most solid answer is that it takes up a lot of your time. You give up time, and one of the reasons people are worried is, oh, listen, I'm going to take up my time for my parents. You know, that's coming off of my cheshbon. That's coming off of my account. Says the Torah, you're not going to lose out, and that's the way it is with all chesed. When you do chesed, you're not going to lose out. But yeah, but it takes up my time to do chesed, right? But if you do chesed, you're going to live longer, because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to make up that time that you're putting into somebody else. It's not going to come off of your account. It's not coming off. Besides the fact that the most fulfilling way to live is by giving. While you're doing the chesed, you're going to see that giving, while a person does the chesed, that's the most enjoyable way to live. But even though in quote unquote it's coming off of your time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make up that time for you. So you're not going to lose out. Okay. Now skip on ahead because I want to get to the cities of refuge. Take a look at Perek Lamed Hey. The Torah says like this. There's a very deep idea over here. Torah says that when a person, Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe ba'arvos Moav, 926. Al Yardein Reich Eloimor. Gives them the command, of giving the Levium their fields, and then, page 928. First it gives the Levium their command, their portion. Then on page 928, 7 lines from the top. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, Daber el bnei Yisrael v'amart lehem ki atem ovrim es Yardein arza Canaan. When you cross the Yardein into the land of Canaan, v'hikrisem lochem orei miklot, cities of refuge, tiyeh lachem, v'nos shama rotzeach make nefesh bishgaga. Somebody who kills unintentionally, he goes to these cities of refuge. We'll explain what this is all about in a second. V'hoyu lachem he'orim lemiklat migoel. These cities will be a refuge from the next of kin. How does the Transcript translate the avenger? The avenger. V'lo yamus harotzeach ad amo lifnei ha'eda lemishvat. And the killer will not be put to death until he stands for judgment. In other words, what happens is like this. What's that?
He goes to Aramaic what?
One second. So did I. The Torah says like this: a guy is chopping wood in the forest, and he accidentally the hatchet flies off, and hits the other guy right in the forehead. Great shot. And now he has to run to the city of refuge. Why does he run to the city of refuge? Because the next of kin is upset. And the Torah gives the next of kin license to kill him. So he goes to the city of refuge, and according to one opinion, it's a mitzvah for the next of kin to try to hunt him down. They then take him out of the city of refuge or bring him to Beis Din. And the Beis Din judges the case. If it was intentional, then he's going to be executed. If it was unintentional, then it depends. If it was unintentional, what we would call negligence. So then he has to go back to the city of refuge. And if it was an onus, circumstances beyond his control, then he is free. He does not have to go to the city of refuge. Now when you go to the city of refuge, the problem is that you're uprooted. It's a punishment of sorts. A person who has to go to the city of refuge means you killed somebody unintentionally. So we didn't blame you, it's not your fault. But had you been more careful, it wouldn't have happened. That means that, you take two guys who were swinging a hatchet. One guy picks up his hatchet, and he checks his hatchet, and his hatchet, he makes sure it's fastened, and he checks it, and double checks it, and triple checks it before he even begins swinging. You got another guy who just grabs the Yahoo! Ring, doing, oops! Oops! And he killed somebody. Right? That means you're not concerned enough about human life. Now, we can't execute the guy because he didn't do it on purpose. But you certainly have a flaw, so we're going to punish you. What happens? You go to the cities of refuge. Now, what if a guy comes along, you got a guy who's married, he's got kids, his kids are in school, and he's got a job, you go to the city of refuge, it's a hassle. And the guy says, I'll tell you the truth, I'm not that religious. It's like a guy says, I don't do tefillin, or I don't do kashrus. So this guy says, I don't do the city of refuge. So the Torah says, really? No kidding. We just want you to know that the deceased has a brother who is a former college linebacker, right? And he's really, really upset, and he's looking for you. And he's got a big, blunt object in his hand. The guy says, wow, I am so city of refuge, right? Off he goes. Because you're going to get motive one way or another, you're going to the city of refuge. How long does he have to stay there? Till the Kohen Gadol dies. He goes off to the city of refuge. And it's a hassle, because you're uprooted. Where are you? Which are the cities of refuge? By no coincidence, the cities of the Levium. Why does he go there? Now watch this. Take a look. It's unbelievable. Take a look. What pasuk? 1 second. I just find the pasuk because I have to show you the word inside. Where is that pasuk? Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Don't. Just one. If I say 1 second, so just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm looking for. No. I'm looking for something specific. Just 1 second. No. I know, guys. I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something very specific. And I just saw it this morning, and I'm just looking for the right pasuk. Just give me 1 second. Give me one second. Just give me 1 second. I just saw it this morning. I know I'm not crazy. Okay, here we go. Take a look at Perek Yud Tes Pasuk Daled in Devarim. Yud Tes Daled in Devarim. This is what I'm looking for. Okay.
Perek Yud Tes, you said?
Perek Yud Tes Pasuk Daled, page 1034. This is where the Torah repeats these laws. And it's 8 lines from the top, 9 lines from the top on page 1034. V'zed dvar harotzeach asher yanus shama, 9 lines from the top of page 1044. V'zed dvar harotzeach asher yanus shama v'chai, asher yake esrei eyu bivli da'as. He kills somebody without das. 1034, 9 lines from the top. 1034, 9 lines from the top. Perik Yud Tes Pasuk Dalet. Asher yake esrei eyu bivli das. The guy who murders him unintentionally is said to have done it without das. What's das? Knowledge, mind, mindless. He was mindless when he killed this guy. Now, the Rambam says that das, the Rambam says a person who is connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if we're solidly connected, it's a very deep idea, listen to this. If a person is connected well to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, these sort of mishaps won't happen. It only happens to a person who is not connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, what does the word das mean? Does anybody know where does the word das first appear in the Torah the first time? V'ha'adam yada es ishto. The marriage relationship, the intimate relationship of marriage is called das. He knew his wife. That's why even in the non-Jewish world it's translated, the man, he knew his wife. And that means the physical relationship, which is called das, which is a strange thing, why the physical relationship should be called das. Be that as it may, that's what it's called. What does that mean? Das means connection. There's some sort of connection. So when the Torah says bivli das, we see originally in Bereshis that das means connection. So if it says bivli das, that means this guy is not connected to the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's the cure for not being connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Now turn back to where we are over here. How many cities of refuge are there, gentlemen? 48. 6 of them are the cities of the Levium, and then there's another 42 cities where a person runs to. Now, what's interesting is if you look at the Kriya Shema is the point of connection between us and God, right? That's the most basic thing that we do to connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is to say Kriya Shema. That's where we accept the yoke of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How many words are in the pasuk of Shema? 6 words in the pasuk, and in the paragraph V'ahavta, 42. What an interesting coincidence. 6 and 42. That means that the way a person, symbolically, the way a person connects to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is by creating the way a person avoids doing things like this is by strengthening the bond and the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So a person has to, why did a person kill unintentionally? Why did he kill unintentionally? Obviously you're living your life a certain way. There's a certain recklessness, a certain lack of concern, because you're not, and the Rambam says it's because you're not connected. So a person has to get connected. So symbolically, the 6 and 42 is like the first pasuk in Kriya Shema and V'ahavta, which is the ultimate point of connection in our davening. Kriya Shema, where you can't do anything, you can't move, you can't think about anything, you have to have complete focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what's really going on here. Now the Torah says that when they went to the city of refuge, you'll notice in pasuk Yud Aleph. Take a look at pasuk Yud Aleph. I'm back on page 928. V'hikrisem lachem orim ore miklat tiyena lachem. You have these cities of refuge. V'nas shama rotzeach make nefesh bishgaga. Where is he running to? To the cities of the Levium. And once he's in, the next of kin's not allowed to kill him. If you kill the guy, he gets 1 foot in. If you kill him then he's a murderer. Up until that point, he's allowed to kill him. So what happens? He goes into the cities of refuge. How does he get there? So the Gemara says at every crossroads, there was a sign that said Miklat, Miklat. There's a sign pointing to the cities of refuge. So that when you're on the run and you get to a crossroads, you don't make a wrong turn and end up in Gaza, or in Isawiya, or in some of these other Arab villages like people have ended up in. You know, guys are following their ways, and the next thing you know, they're following their ways, and the next thing you know, he's in Faham, right? And he's in trouble, and the army has to go in and get him out, right? Or Isawiya, that's my favorite, Isawiya. Every time there's a terrorist attack, the guys from Isawiya, I got into a cab a couple of weeks ago. So it's like this young guy, I just looks like he stepped out of Terrorist magazine. Cab driver is an Arab. All right, so I drive with the guy. So we started talking. I said, where are you from? Isawiya. Like, ooh. Oh, my favorite. Isawiya. Right? So you want to make sure you're on the run. You're a fugitive on the run. Oh, by the way, just not to scare anybody, there are different levels of unintentional avera. So if a guy's driving 65 miles an hour and kills somebody accidentally, all right, you're above the speed limit. If a guy's driving 90 miles an hour and he's drunk on a side street and he runs off and he kills somebody, it's a different degree of negligence. What we call that even gross negligence, involuntary manslaughter. What happens to a person like that? He can't even go to the city of refuge. City of refuge doesn't save him. You know what the Rambam says about a person like, if a person really killed just gross negligence, you know what happens to a person like that? He's a fugitive on the run for his entire life. How do you like that? He has to enter a government witness protection program. Better get some plastic surgery. Better get something done, because the guy could hunt you to whether you can't. You're never going to sleep in peace again. Why do you go to the city of refuge? By the way, you know why is that the punishment? Go to the city of refuge at a deeper level. When you kill somebody, you sent his neshama into exile. Symbolically. You detached the neshama from his body, you sent his neshama off. So the person who killed him and sent his neshama off, so now you have to go off into exile too. That's the Mida Keneged Mida. That's an interesting idea. You sent him into exile, you got to go into exile too. So it says at every crossroads there's a sign that said Miklat Miklat, with arrows pointing so you know where you're going. Question. 3 times a year, the Jewish people go up to Yerushalayim. Right? Aliyah L'Regel. You got to go up to Yerushalayim. How come there aren't signs at every crossroad that say Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim? Why is what kind of pessimists are? Only when it comes to running off to the city of refuge, so it says Miklat, Miklat. How come there are no signs pointing to Yerushalayim? I don't want guys going up to Yerushalayim ending up in Isawiya either. So why aren't there any signs? Why aren't they crossroads for guys going up to Yerushalayim? All right, the answer is that Miklat is life-threatening. The guy's got to get there. Okay, well, a little bit more. We need a little more than that. You know what the answer is? One of the commentaries, I think more than one commentary saw this. Says, on the way to Yerushalayim, what's going to happen? So I start heading up to Yerushalayim for the regal, and I see Lior. Lior says, "Yo, bro, where are you off to?" I said, "Well, we're going to Yerushalayim. We're going up to the regal. Come on, join us." Oh, wow, okay. And what happens was the person going up can spread a positive influence. Positive influences, I don't want crossroads signs. I want people telling other people, hey, come on, guys, let's go up to Yerushalayim. It's like yesterday, I was on the way out of the yeshiva. A couple of guys were on the way to a restaurant. I said, hey, Rabbi, you want to join us? We're going to a restaurant. For that, people, I didn't, by the way. They were going for milchiks. But what do you call it? Hey, when it's something, we want you to talk to other people. When it comes to killing people, we don't want this guy talking to anybody. This guy's a negative influence. This guy's got some character flaws. We want you to know how to get there without, hey, can you give me directions to the Arei Miklat? Why? What'd you do? Well, I was chopping, and I killed somebody. He says, hey, I got a better operation here. I'm running some counterfeiting. Come with me. We don't want him. It's spread negative. We don't want the negative. We don't want it. For the negative, we put up signs. For the positive, he goes to the city of refuge. How long does he stay there? Yeah, go ahead, Mer.
Shouldn't also give a hint to the person hunting
we don't have to help him. He'll find. He's not. We're not looking. We want this guy to make it. We want him to make it. But in order, if you're thinking you're not going to make it, so then just be aware that the guy's coming for you. Okay, that's why. But the minute you get in, or if Beis Din paskins that you're not in touch, you're not guilty, as soon as you come out of the city of refuge, he's a murderer if he kills you. That means he's expected to control himself. We know you're upset. We know we know it's what do you call? That doesn't give you a license to do whatever you want. If we say you could kill him, then you could kill him. But once we say no, he can't. It wasn't intentional. Yeah, but he should have been. Beis Din paskin. That's it. But you have to stay in the cities of refuge. And if you walk out of the cities of refuge, then you're free game. We just hope this guy hasn't got one of those high-powered 600-meter rifles. He's just watching the entrance of the city of Rev. Come on, make my day, right? So you better stay where better stay where you are. Okay. Now, how long does he stay there for? Till the death of the Kohen Gadol. What's the Kohen Gadol got to do with this? How did I get involved in this? Why is the Kohen Gadol? Number one. And number two, why does the death of the Kohen Gadol help the next of kin? So the answer is that the Kohen Gadol is the spiritual leader of Jewish people. If people are not taking other people's lives seriously enough, if somebody could be so careless and reckless with other people's lives, that means the spiritual level of the people has dropped. Who's responsible for that spiritual level? Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol. And the Kohen Gadol should have davened that this wouldn't happen in his time. He should have davened that we should avoid such things. What about the next of kin? So the next of kin, when the Kohen Gadol dies, everybody is likely to start thinking to themselves, wow, if even a Kohen Gadol could die, I guess anybody could go. I mean, the Kohen Gadol is such a righteous and he's a tzaddik. If even a Kohen Gadol could die, well, I guess anybody could go. And then the guy puts the death of his relative in the proper perspective. Okay, if it wouldn't have been this, it would have been something else. If it would have been this year, it would have been next year, whatever it is. But the death of the Kohen Gadol is a reminder to everybody how temporary everything is. So don't make an issue out of it. And when a Kohen Gadol dies, the guy who went to the city of refuge probably did tshuva. This guy did tshuva, and therefore game over. But it's all dependent on the death of the Kohen Gadol. It's a remarkable thing. Nowadays we don't have it. But the halachas of city of refuge, that there's vigilantism, that you can actually take the law in your own hands. But you're not taking the law in your own hands. The Torah is putting the law in your own hands. That's the difference. The Torah is putting your law and making you a potential executioner, just like Basin's an executioner. It's not wanton vigilantism starring Charles Bronson, right? It's not wanton. It's wanton death wish. Come on, Dave, you saw Death Wish. Tell me you didn't see Death Wish. You didn't see Death Wish? Oh, that was a good movie. The Vigilante, it was an unbelievable theme, the movie, because Charles Bronson said he's this vigilante who starts killing muggers in New York. He starts killing muggers in New York, and in the end of the day, the crime rates drop. And then the police commissioner has a problem because he knows it's him, but he doesn't want anybody to know that he's been caught because the crime rate has dropped in New York, which you ought to do today, by the way. Right, the crime rate has dropped. So I think in the end of the movie, he sends them off to Chicago. He tells them, just go to Chicago. It happened to be Chicago. He says, go to Chicago. But don't tell anybody that we caught you, because he wants the crime rates to drop. Torah isn't turning it into wanton vigilantism. Even Pinchas, who goes and he's a vigilante and he kills Zimri, and it's not wanton vigilante. It's whenever you feel. It's where the Torah says that you have the right to do that. All right.